All right, so this is related to the cat falling from the top of the Sears Tower. This is a major mind twister. The reason why this becomes a major mind twister is because the longer the distance of fall is, as it so happens, the better the cats will do. In fact, anything over 70 feet, the injuries tend to be less severe. Anything under 70 feet, the injuries tend to be more severe. And your mind at this point has a hard time computing this. And there's a real good reason for it. It becomes very confusing. This is otherwise known as the high-rise syndrome. All right, so the cats in high rises, for various reasons, they fall. And eventually, the vets are the ones who notice the pattern. They notice that anything above 70 feet, forget it. I mean, injuries are there, maybe a broken tooth or something, but they tend to be fairly non-life threatening.
The story of Gizmo the cat, who some might argue is living on borrowed time after the death-defying plunge it took. CBS 2's Scott Rappaport introduces us to the cat who has 8 lives left.
If every cat indeed has 9 lives, it's safe to say Gizmo here has already used 1 up.
He's extremely lucky.
The adorable 4.5-year-old Egyptian Mao plunged 13 stories from his owner's penthouse balcony and somehow lived to tell the tale. Well, that is, he can actually talk.
It's definitely a miracle.
Gizmo's owner, Samuel Jacobs, is happy to talk for him.
I just look at him now and just think in my head, I can't believe you survived that.
Sometime between Monday night and Tuesday morning, Gizmo got out onto a 16th-floor terrace railing here in Murray Hill. And then the unthinkable.
Gizmo apparently slipped off the terrace railing and went flying off the balcony, falling 13 stories below and landing on a skylight.
When Jacobs couldn't find Gizmo, he looked over the balcony and couldn't believe what he saw.
I saw Gizzy on the 3rd floor laying there. I didn't know if he was alive. I didn't know if he was dead. I was thinking he was dead.
But incredibly, somehow the feline survived his terrifying flight of fancy, emerging with just a broken tooth and some scratches.
Unbelievable. I thought he was at least going to have, broken body parts, broken legs.
No. The cat who cheated death. Catastrophe averted. Scott Rappaport, CBS 2 News.
All right, all of a sudden this becomes a bit of a mystery. Because why is it that the longer the distance is, the better the cats do? How's this possible?
Because of the muscles in their shoulders.
All right, Christian, give yourself 5 points for that one. All right, so that was the secondary reason. So what's the primary reason? So that's what we will discuss. So, okay, the reason why this happens, fusion happens, is because
Stearns will journey
of the emphasis that we end up putting, so much emphasis we end up putting on free fall.
to the edge of space in a
So what's free fall?
helium balloon similar to
Free fall is the motion under the influence of gravity and gravity only, right?
this one. By the end of the 2.5-hour trip, she will face a world of danger. When she bails out, there will be no breathable air.
I want free fall because there isn't any
She's gonna go 25,000 miles up.
dynamic
Guys, the atmosphere extends about 52 miles, so she's gonna go halfway up.
pressure against me.
So higher up you go, the less the air is, right?
I am going to go so
So if that's the case, the only force acting is gravity.
fast in about
So it's free fall,
60 seconds. I'll reach a speed of approximately 1.3 Mach.
which is almost 900 miles per hour.
That's 885 miles an hour.
All right, so if gravity is the only force acting, you will keep speeding up at a constant rate. So you will keep gaining speed, and within a minute, you're going about 900 miles per hour.
Faster than the speed of sound.
So the longer the distance is, the longer the distance that you follow, the faster you will go. Okay, and we got ourselves conditioned to think within those parameters. All right, in free fall, weight doesn't matter. Everything is going to accelerate at the same rate. Your horizontal motion doesn't matter. Everything is going to fall at the same rate. That's what gravity does. But real life is different. All right, there's more to motion than just gravity. There's more to forces than just gravity. For example, when you go skydiving, they give you a parachute, and there's a really good reason for it. The reason why they give you a parachute because it slows you down. All right. Not think of jumping without a parachute because the air friction does matter. Don't forget that the air friction does matter, and the air friction plays an important role. All right. So what does the air friction do when you jump from the sky? Gravity pulls you down. That's your weight. You got the retarding force. This is the resistance, or R. So what happens is you start to gain speed. The retarding force is going to get larger and larger. So this resistance, the retarding force, at some point is going to become equal to your own weight, right? So you got 2 forces acting on you, one down, one up, same size, same magnitude, opposite directions. So they will cancel. That's what happens. So they will add up to 0. They will cancel. You're still moving, but now you're moving at a constant speed because you stopped accelerating. The speed which you're following is known as your terminal velocity. So the air friction acting on your body is going to balance the weight. At that point, the net force is 0. Forces will cancel out. You stop accelerating. You're still following, but you're following at a constant speed. That speed is known as your terminal velocity. For an average sized human being, it's roughly about 120 miles per hour. The thing about reaching your terminal velocity because you stop accelerating, it no longer feels like you're falling. It feels like you're floating. All right, so the falling sensation becomes replaced with the floating sensation. That's what happens. When you feel like you're floating, your muscles relax. At this point, you can start having fun because it feels like you're floating. You can spin around. Drink your Pepsi and share it with the other animals. Life becomes fun. All right, so what do we know? We know that the terminal velocity is a product of air friction, so it's going to be related to air friction. So the next question is, what variables, what factors contribute to air friction? All right.
Stearns will journey to
The
the
first one is fairly obvious. This woman is 25 mile high up. There's not much air. As soon as the air becomes thicker, she's going to slow down. She's not going to be going at 99 miles per hour. She's going to slow down to 120 miles per hour at some point.
edge of
So the biggest contributor to air friction is the air itself. So it's the air density, right? The density of the air is the biggest contributing factor.
Accident that leaves a jumper out cold and spiraling out of control.
13,000 feet above Laurel, Delaware, a cameraman rolls tape on a team of skydivers. They're called street gliders, expert aerialists who fall at speeds approaching 200 miles an hour. The skydiving videographer positions his helmet cam directly above as the group links hands and goes into formation. Watch again. When the divers move apart, it slows their descent. The cameraman can't compensate fast enough and slams right into the formation. The impact is so powerful, it knocks the cameraman out. He's now free-falling unconscious, spiraling out of control. Then, at the 4,000-foot mark, something extraordinary happens. The cameraman regains consciousness for a moment. His jaw is broken, but he's able to open his chute.
I believe that what must have saved me was a audible altimeter. It makes a loud beeping tone. We'll set at about 4,000 feet.
Cameraman Dave Halleck survives to tell his story.
I went into a head-down dive in order to stay with him. However, as I came out and laid back,
we can't hear you.
These guys end up reducing their exposed surface area, so they end up gaining speed, right? So he's trying to keep up with them. So what does he do? He ends up in a head-down dive. All right, so now he's gaining speed. He's trying to keep up with them. And all of a sudden, these guys open up formation.
they then decelerated.
And then immediately, because they end up increasing the exposed surface area, so they will slow down much faster than he could compensate. So he ends up flying into formation.
I took a picture.
His jaw is still broken.
That's the
Wired.
last idea I have of anything that I can remember.
But Dave's first accident in 3,000 jumps isn't about to keep him away from capturing on tape the sport he loves.
It's so much of an art and so much of a joy. That will do it again.
All right, so the first contributing factor is the air density. Second one is the exposed surface area. The third one is commonsensical. Notice that this guy jumps, right? So gravity is the only force acting. So what's happening is he's going to speed up. As he starts to gain speed, the frictional force is going to start to get larger. You're driving at 30, stick your hand out, you will feel the friction. At 60, the friction is going to be much larger. So the third contributing factor is going to be the speed of the falling object. Air density, you got the exposed surface area. The third one is the speed of the falling object. That's it. Okay, and there's a fourth one, and then that's the one that we will do after the break. So go take a break for 10, be back within 10, and then we'll take it from there. It's related to air density, exposed surface area, and speed of the falling object. The last one is going to come from this clip.
Then John Vincent.
People compared to having sex in a car accident, you know, it's just so intense, but so exciting, so scary.
John has secured his reputation as one of the preeminent base jumpers in the world, due in large part to his illegal jump off this, Manhattan's 110-story World Trade Center. John tried to make this jump once before, but was stopped by building officials. Now, 1 year later, as a friend videotapes the event, he's ready to try again.
Hey, 1 minute, it's already passed.
With his parachute concealed beneath a jacket and sweatshirt, John successfully makes his way past security. The World Trade Center has only been jumped 4 times before, landing 3 of the people into police custody. If John succeeds in making the jump and is caught, he could face jail time and a fine up to $10,000. John waits for the security guards to become distracted. Then he makes his move.
When I finally got over the fence and I was there, it was just a big relief to finally get to the edge and be able to jump.
John checks to make sure that the wind is blowing safely away from the building.
Oh, there goes the streamer.
All right, so what's the purpose of the streamer? The purpose of it is to check the conditions, right? Conditions of the air mass. If it's windy, if it's snowy, if it's cold, if it's raining. These are all factors that's going to play into air friction.
Conditions are good, and there's no stopping him now.
There he is. He's up on top. There he goes. Oh my God. Gorgeous.
His jump is picture perfect. Unfortunately, John has left little time to savor his victory.
There's intense thrills. I mean, more so when you're doing an illegal jump. Especially when you hear sirens, your adrenaline gets going a whole lot more and you run a lot faster.
John was never arrested for the World Trade Center jump, though a later jump off the St. Louis Arch does land him 90 days in a federal prison.
No, I didn't see anything. I don't know. I just saw some guys running around. So.
Despite the rush of those bad boy days, John now pursues only legal base jumps.
All right, so the contributing factors, air density, surface area, speed of the falling object, and the conditions of the air mass. All right, now we can come up with a mathematical model. Okay, so what do we have? Weight is going to pull the person down. You got the air friction is opposing the motion. This is the speed of the falling object. Eventually, it's going to start to reach the terminal velocity. So this is going to represent the terminal velocity. All right, so we know that the air friction is going to be directly proportional to air density. So rho is air density. Proportional to the surface area, exposed surface area, proportional to speed, and lastly, it's going to be proportional to the conditions. C is the conditions. All right, so we'll come up with a formula. We're going to come up for a formula for air friction. So being physicists for a case like that is straightforward because the only thing you have to do literally is multiply everything in sight, multiply every single expression that you have, and then make some adjustments based upon some experimental results. So this is known as an empirical formula. Empirical means experimental. All right, so this is the formula that's going to approximate what air friction does. It approximates the frictional force, air friction force, air resistance. And then now we have to adjust it for terminal velocity. So what happens? When the air resistance becomes equal to your weight, at that point you're falling at your terminal velocity. So at that point we can take a look at the net force in the y direction. And so when you reach your terminal velocity, you stop accelerating. So, which means that the air resistance is going to be the same as your weight, and the speed with which you're falling at that point is your terminal velocity. So what that means is you can take this formula and modify it. All right, so this F becomes your weight, so the air resistance is the same as your weight, and at that point, this speed is your terminal velocity. So this formula is going to get modified to look like this. All right, so F becomes W, V becomes terminal velocity. Now, solve this for the terminal velocity. All right, and then boom, boom, boom. So this is the final expression that you get. This means it's going to have two predictions. It says heavier the object is, the faster it's going to fall. And larger the exposed surface area is, slower the object is going to fall.